Hello, everybody. I'm Anthony Porter. Outdoor Anthony is the channel. You can find me on Instagram and TikTok and all that stuff. But I am here because I am getting question after question about what is your archery setup and how can I get a bow like that? How can I get arrows like that? How can I get a quiver like this? How can I get a knife like this? We probably won't talk about the knife. But essentially, if you're here, you want to learn about archery. So here we go. Hi, I'm Anthony. I don't have a theme song, but this is gonna have to do. So you're starting in archery and you want to find out what equipment to get. So just to start off, there's basically two kinds of bows that people are going to talk to you about. There's going to be the traditional bows, and then there's going to be the compound bows. The traditional bows are going to look something like this without these extra limbs on the front. This is a more advanced bow. So just this limb and just this limb with just this string. And then there's going to be the compound bows. And the compound bows are going to have the gears on each side, or cams as we call them, and they're going to be more technically involved, right? So if you're just getting started off in archery, an Anthony preference would be for you to start with a traditional bow. You are going to understand the technique, the energy transfer, and the whole physics of the sport way better if you start off with traditional bows. This is one solid piece, and you can get one solid piece bow. They tend to be more expensive, or you could get a takedown bow, which I highly recommend if you're just starting out. And a takedown bow is basically you buy the handle and then you buy the limbs too. And so if you are traveling a lot and stuff, you can break this bow down into 3 pieces and it'll fit in this. I have a little briefcase that I check in at the airport to bring my bow around when I travel places. And it is super nice to have a takedown bow if you're traveling around or if you just want to put it in your closet. I have like a whole mount and I hang this like in my room on my wall. So I recommend starting off with a takedown bow. Budgeting. All right, when it comes to buying all of your equipment, I'd recommend a budget of maybe $200 in total. If you want to get a target for your backyard or something like that, it's going to be a little bit more. I would probably say a target at like Big Five or like a big department store might be $60 or $70. But come on, baby. There we go. A bow, if you're just starting out, I would recommend the bow would maybe be somewhere between $80 and $150. And then arrows on top of that are going to be a little bit less. Probably $50 for 12 or $50 for 6 is usually about right. So yeah. Strength of the bow. Let's say you are ages 0 to 15. I would recommend you start with a bow that is under 20 pounds or under 25 pounds, depends on your athleticism level. But essentially, whatever your physique is, you want to get a bow appropriate to that. So if you're not very athletic at all yet, and that's totally fine, archery is not like a sport. I would recommend getting a 10-pound bow, a 15-pound bow, a 20-pound bow would be awesome if you can get up to that. If you are a little bit more athletic or you have a sport going on in your life and you want to continue your athleticism with archery, that's going to be 25, 30, 35, 40 in that area. Depending on your level of athleticism, that is what I'd recommend. Now, if you're at the gym and you're pulling up weights like that and you're doing like 30 pounds, you're killing it. I would probably do a 40-pound bow. The thing is, with these bows, it's not about your whole body weight getting put into it. You are putting all of that pressure on 3 fingers to pull back. And so this is not like working out at the gym. This is more acute on your hands as well. There are right-handed and there are left-handed bows. So I would recommend making sure you know exactly what arm is stronger or what arm you want to start off pulling back the bow with. I am a right-handed shooter. So that means I'm going to hold the bow with my left hand and I'm going to pull back with my right hand. Boo-boo, yay! Yeah, that's it. Make sure that happens. The only difference between left-handed and right-handed is where the shelf is lying. Whoa. Sorry, just like a bunch of birds flew overhead. So if I'm shooting, I'm going to be putting the arrow on this side of the bow, the same side of the bow that my arm is as well, see? So I'm pulling back. I'm not going to shoot my camera, but you can see that, right? If I was left-handed, that means I would hold the bow this way, and since that shelf is on the other side, it's no bueno. If you want to shoot standard English archery, it has to go on this side too. So you want a shelf on this side if you're getting one with a shelf. All right, last thing about bows is if you are interested in getting a super fancy bow like this, my buddy Tony makes these bows. I don't get money, and I'm an affiliate. I just genuinely love these bows, and I call this bow Hush the God Killer, because it just looks epic. And so, yeah, that's Tony's little White Wolf Archery logo right there. Check them out. It's expensive. They're expensive, but they're good. They're really good bows. All right, where do I put this?
Arrows.
Now we're talking about arrows. So it's very important to get the right kind of arrow, right? And it depends on the strength of the bow that you have, right? You can't shoot a little spaghetti noodle out of a giant, massive, strong bow. And the same thing, if you have a little tiny weak bow, which is fine to start off with, you can't shoot a giant, like, bolt, right? Because it's just gonna go, bam. Think about, like, shooting a Nerf gun with, like, a lead weight on it. It's just gonna go, right? So it depends on the kind of bow that you have. These arrows are carbon fiber arrows, which I personally endorse and recommend. So just to mention, there are 3 kinds of arrows. There are wooden arrows, there are carbon fiber arrows, and then there are aluminum arrows. And I don't know. You can decide, and you could read forums online all you want, but I recommend carbon fiber arrows because I can shoot stumps all day and they will not break and they will not splinter. If I do get a splinter on them, it is very easy to see, and you could just knock on it. It'll sound like meh because there's like a flap missing. So there's a bunch of different brands that you can chat with, and one of them that I definitely really like are the Victory arrows that are made in Carlsbad, San Diego. And the carbon fiber arrows are my favorite because they are durable. They are super weather resistant. I found these like years like buried in the ground, and I've picked them up, and some of them are in my quiver right now. So they're super weatherproof and durable. And on top of that, the wooden arrows aren't awesome, and the aluminum arrows tend to break easy too. So these are the most durable for your buck.
Feather fletchings.
All right, feathers. So a lot of people love these feathery feathers. They're actually like manufactured feather arrows. I recommend these. You'll also see rubber feathers, or we're going to call them fletchings. Fletchings is the official word. So feathered fletchings or rubber fletchings. And feathered fletchings by far are way cooler in my opinion. And on top of that, they just have a better collapse, right? So let's say you're shooting past a bow, and the bow is my finger, and you can see that it collapses as it goes past. If a rubber arrow is here, it would bend and actually contort your shot quite a bit. So you need an adapted shelf in order to shoot rubber arrows. Rubber fletchings.
Arrow tips.
Tips. All right, so there's a lot of different ways to find tips. Now, depends on your bow. It depends on the arrow that you're shooting. But essentially, you want to make sure that your tip is the same size as the shaft, right? If it's bigger, then that means when you pull out of the target, it's gonna get stuck and it's gonna stink. It's not gonna be fun. But also, it's basically about the weight distribution of the arrow, right? If I'm shooting something and it's super top heavy, this thing is gonna fall to the ground before it hits the target. If I have one that is super light, then there's going to be nothing pushing this arrow forward, and it's going to be flimsy and fly away. Every arrow and bow has a different preference, right? So you want to make sure if you go to your local archery store, they do a thing called a paper test to see how much your arrows wobble, but there's also like a science to what tips belong with certain arrows. So just for a super technical tip, these are 5/16 arrows, which are 100 grain, and this is a 400 vein arrow. It gets very specific, so I'd recommend researching more about that. We're done with arrows. I've taught you all that I know.
Quiver.
All right, something I'm super proud about is my quiver. So I made this quiver myself. I don't sell them. I definitely enjoy the fact that I can wear arrows on my back because check this out. Like, I think that's cool, right? I could go upside down and they won't fall out because I magnetize the bottom. So I super customize this because I like being crafty with stuff. But this quiver is, the body of this is a QH100 left-handed quiver from Easton. And I adapted it to basically run all this stuff through to make it a full back quiver. So a lot of archery is going to be getting creative just like this. Don't get creative with the arrows or with the bow really, because that's more of a safety issue and I wouldn't recommend that. But stuff like this is super fun to do. So I sewed this all together. There's nothing really that I'd recommend for you personally to create. You can make whatever kind of quiver you want. A lot of people have hip quivers, so they come off the side, which is generally the recommended thing to do, especially in competition shooters. But I'm a hiker. I honestly am making this video after doing about a 5-mile hike to the top of a mountain. And I did that with like 30 pounds on my back, with this bow in my hand and with these arrows on my back as well. So these are my active arrows. And yeah, check this out, check this out. You ready? They're not coming out because I magnetized the bottom. I think that's really cool. I don't know, I'm a dork. I'm also not a fan of anything jangling and like jingling. So a lot of times on the hip belt, and they have all those arrows coming off their hip, it sounds like a giant chandelier moving around. But this, once it's like really flush to my back, there's not a lot of sound, which is great. All right, the last thing that you want to make sure you get are safety equipment pieces, right? So you're gonna want to get 2 things to start off with. And I personally am not wearing them right now because I just went on a hike, but they are finger tabs and then they are arm guards. So a lot of times when you're first starting off shooting, you're shooting a lot, that string is gonna go right past your arm. And sometimes if you're not being careful, your arm's gonna get slapped over and over with that string and you're gonna have these big red welts on your arm. There are techniques to avoid that. Like, as you can see here, my elbow's out. If you just push your elbow in, that string will go right past. But if that meat of your elbow is exposed, that's gonna allow that meat to get smacked. Ugh, it hurts. But if you are just starting out, it is very important to make sure you're protecting your forearm. So I would recommend an arm guard and a finger tab. There are many different kinds of finger tabs to get. I'm not gonna tell you about a whole bunch of them. I would recommend getting a finger tab glove. That way you're not fumbling with this weird leather fob on your finger. Instead, it is just a glove that you wear. I have these little Patagonia gloves because I like to feel, and I have very calloused fingers from shooting all the time. So when I'm shooting, I can pull back an arrow and I can feel exactly where I need to be holding it based off of, oh, I totally shot it, didn't I? Yes! I got it. Sorry. I knew where I was shooting. But I lost my train of thought. The important part is when you're talking to any kind of tech at the store, when it comes to archery experts or people online, everyone's gonna have their own expression of archery. And that's okay. Archery has been around for 64,000 years. And anytime that you're gonna ask somebody about archery, someone else is gonna say the exact opposite thing. I've been shooting for 15 years and I genuinely love the sport. I don't compete. I do this just for me. And I'm gonna tell you exactly how I choose to love the sport. All right, this was the first video of many to teach you how to get started with archery. And the next video is gonna be all about the technique and what exactly you need to learn in order to start shooting your arrows. Now, make sure you get that equipment, and it's not gonna be cheap, but I guarantee you that once you get the equipment, the costs after that are gonna go way down. It's basically just gonna be replenishing your arrows when you break them, which when you get started is going to happen. So check out your local archery store, go to your local archery range, and if you have neither of those things, there's a whole bunch of YouTube videos online of people making their own bows, because sometimes we're just out in the middle of the woods and we got to deal with what we have. But I appreciate all of you guys for watching. I don't care if you like this or subscribe, but just say hi to me if you want. I am always here to chat and answer your questions. So feel free to message me on Instagram and TikTok, which is I'm constantly on, unfortunately. That way I can answer all of your archery questions. But I love you guys, stay awesome, and don't be afraid to get out there. Let's go adventure. Woo!
Look out for part 2 on shooting technique. Coming soon. Eventually.